All right, good morning, everyone. Let's get started. All right, my name is Byeong-Uk again. I'm working for State of Georgia Environmental Protection Division. Today, I would like to share a possible, I don't know, master's research project topic or example that we had some interesting event in April related to the transport of the smoke plumes. Just a reminder that 2024 PM new NACS came out. It's effective, I believe, May 6th as the effective date. It's a 9 micron per cubic meter, and the daily standard is retained at 35. And that means State of Georgia will need to work on a lot of exceptional event demonstration since many of our exceedances, which is by definition the case where your measured 24-hour max level, the PM2.5 level is over 35 micron per cubic meter for now. That's due to the smoke fires, and that some of these have a long range cases, not just the nearby monitors. So for our most of cases are. And here's an example that we had April 7, 2024. I explained the definition of the exceedance there, and we have a lot of these, especially the burn season, which is pretty much around October through the March. And here is our monitoring network. You can see that a lot of our monitors are actually in a rural area where a lot of burns happen. And this particular exceedance, we had a monitor in the Metro Atlanta area, it's the southern part actually, had the exceedance there. So what happened? In April 6th, you can see that there's some cloud cover and not much activity going on, but suddenly April 7th, boom, you have a 24-hour AOD or the daily AOD from aerosol watch that's showing some red spots there, meaning that there is a high elevated PM2.5 concentration happen. And this is the one thing that I really love about the GOES 16 geocolor that you can actually see. Now the plume coming down in the two major sources, one from Tennessee, which we don't have really any authority. The other one is, let me play it again. The other one is actually from Georgia site, which we have sort of control that doesn't play again. But anyway, so you saw the two plumes coming out. And then this is just a snapshot. You can actually see that now which plume actually hit the monitor. That's a big question for the exceptional event. And in general, what to control or what other mitigation plan that we have to have. And then first thing that we did as part of our external report, which we have to develop every single external in within 2 to 3 business days. So you can imagine how busy we are. And part of our task will be making this integrated plot, dumping all the information that we can gather. And one of the piece of information is back trajectory. Now it says it's a Tennessee one. As you can see here, all the triangles is what we have a burn permit information from our forestry commissioner partner. They have a location and time and a size of the fires in Georgia, but we don't have anything about that in Tennessee. So far, we didn't contact the Tennessee yet about what happened in the southern part of the Tennessee, but satellite detected fires there. So depending on the type of the fire, it actually changed our category of our exceptional events. Because if it is wildfire, then we have to go that route. If it is prescribed burn, then we have to go to the prescribed burn. So which type of the fire and where it is very important for us to set the direction where we go. So it seems to be kind of clear here, but then, during the nighttime, we don't have information. So I wanted to check out the HER smoke that provide information about the transport overnight. And now you can see that it's pretty lined up direction. Then now suddenly the HER smoke says that it's likely from Georgia fire, right? And there is one twist. Well, overnight, the wind shifted. So there is a good possibility that it might hit by the Tennessee fire plume. And if you go back then as time series, that first peak actually happened around like 9 p.m. the day before. And any of you, if you ever done like a GC chromatography or peak overlapping, that you would wonder whether the sharp decline around like 11 p.m. on April 6th, maybe just showing of the cliff decline, or maybe having some tail effects, depending on how that smoke plume hit. The average concentration for the April 7th can be affected by the peak that actually happened the night of the April 6th. Again, that's why it's very important which fire actually causing the incidents at the forest park monitor. And then, let me see. And unfortunately, I'm sort of fortunate too. The tropomi couldn't capture it just because, again, the plume transported throughout the night. So here is our wish list. Whenever I have a chance, that I kind of advertise it. This is courtesy by the Dr. Jung Wang at the University of Iowa. This is one of the products that we need, the nighttime AOD, if possible, ever. And then the other one that we really want to have is AOD height, so that we know whether the plume actually going over the stable boundary layer throughout the night and hit the monitor when the P-belly is broken, or it's just going under somehow in a very stable under the boundary layer treble in a night. That's going to be very important. And then there is one more twist. The data that I showed as a daily average is based on Teledyne T640 continuous monitor, FEM monitor value. The EPA have been working hard to do bias correction because it has known bias for the data. Unfortunately, at least so far, what we discovered, and we actually made an official comment to the EPA, that the bias correction doesn't seem to work. So this is the one that we plotted again with our co-located FRM data, which is golden standard, with the supposedly bias corrected FEM data. We still see in a statewide about 18% high bias. I mean, that's a pretty significant. If you think about even reducing 0.1 micron per cubic meter for the annual standard is really daunting, task for states to reduce any kind of possible emissions, or even working on the exceptional event demonstration. And also, this is one that I also kind of remind every researchers who did a wonderful job of training their machine learning everything with a ground monitor, that some of your ground monitor data, unless you filter out or did a little bit of the adjustment that I shared now, may have a high bias in it already, just because what you thought that the ground truth for the ground measurement already have a high bias compared to the FRM monitor. So just be aware of this. We'll continue to work with hopefully EPA to, make a better FEM bias correction going forward, but it's still under discussion and investigation. So that's all I have. Thanks.
Next up is the mighty Brad Pierce from the University of Wisconsin-Madison.
Okay, so I'm gonna go from sort of looking at transport of local agricultural fires to large fires that occurred in Canada last summer. And a lot of this work, particularly all the wharf chem work that I'm going to be showing today, was designed, conducted, and analyzed by Gerald Octon, who is my student at University of Wisconsin-Madison, and it's funded under the NASA Finesse program. So a lot of this is his work. So this figure shows a GO16 true color image from Aerosol Watch, showing a smoke plume coming over Wisconsin. And superimposed on top of that is the surface PM 2.5 concentrations from EPA Air Now. And you can see that, and these are in micrograms per meter cube. You can see that it's a quite polluted period. This is the 24th of July of last year. So I'm going to focus on a case study looking at this event. This is again from EPA Air Now. On the left panel is ozone AQI. On the right panel is the PM 2.5 AQI. And again, you can see this is it's a very high poor air quality day with unhealthy to very unhealthy ozone. and unhealthy for sensitive groups to unhealthy PM 2.5. What you also see is it extends quite far inland from Lake Michigan. A lot of the, particularly the ozone events along Lake Michigan, tend to be confined to the coast. So this has all the characteristics of a larger regional event, and that's why we're looking into it. So again, kind of putting context for this event. This is, again, goes true color imagery now starting on July 22nd. So 4 days before the highest ozone concentrations. And you can see high aerosol optical depth coming in over North Dakota and Minnesota on the 22nd. That's moving in over Minnesota and western Wisconsin over the 23rd. Gets stretched out along Minnesota and then moves over Lake Michigan on the 24th and is actually advected off to the east by the 25th. We ran back trajectories, high split back trajectories using her data from Chilwaukee Prairie Monitor, which is right on the coast of Lake Michigan, but on the border between Wisconsin and Illinois. And this is what those back trajectories show. Very unique back trajectories. You see this very sharp change in the directions. First of all, the back trajectories are moving along the shore of Lake Michigan, going back to Chicago, take a very sharp turn and actually mix around in the vertical before you see them moving backwards in time into Canada. So this is from a back trajectory perspective and the GOES AOD. This is a smoke plume that's coming in to the Midwest Chicago area. It's getting entrained in the lake breeze circulation that was forming on Lake Michigan and then combining with the Chicago plume. So what was going on in terms of fires? The 2023 Canadian wildfire season was unprecedented. By the end of September, the amount of acreage burned was twice the previous record. 2023 was the warmest May through July period in over 80 years, breaking the record by 0.8 degrees C. And according to Environment Canada, climate change contributed to the record high temperatures and dry conditions. So this is the future that we're looking forward to, where these sorts of fires are likely to become more prevalent. So we conducted 4-kilometer regional wharf chem experiments. We did the boundary conditions for this are from the WACM model. And we did 2 experiments, one without the Canadian wildfires and one with an optimized Canadian wildfire emissions. We're using the NEMO high resolution 1-kilometer NEMO emissions and we're scaling the, we're not scaling them. We're not trending them, but we're using those at 4 kilometers. So this loop on the top panel on the far left shows the no Canadian wildfire case. Top panel is PM 2.5 at the surface. Bottom panel is ozone. The middle panel shows the regionally scaled simulation where we've got Canadian wildfires. And then the right-hand panel shows the difference between the two. So you can clearly see this, this Canadian wildfire plume coming in, significant over 40 parts per micrograms per meter cube enhancement in the surface PM 2.5 as this moves in over the Midwest. Differences again are larger than 20 up to 40 micrograms per meter cube. In terms of ozone changes, again, you've got lots of diurnal variations in ozone that you see in both simulations, but you still see regional enhancements in ozone that are on the order of 20 parts per billion or greater. So this is a highly impactful long-range transport event on this day. So this is a still comparing the forecast without Canadian wildfires to the surface PM 2.5 monitors on the left and the surface ozone monitors on the right. And what you see is, first of all, without the Canadian wildfires, significant underestimates in surface PM 2.5. However, you can see along the shore of Lake Michigan, there's actually very good agreement between the prediction of ozone, particularly along that very narrow coastal zone where we see these lake effect enhancements in ozone pollution. But you will see that for this no Canadian wildfire cases, we're still underestimating ozone inland in southeastern Wisconsin, over much of Michigan and also south central Wisconsin. This is the results with the wildfire experiments in, and you can see we're doing a better job along the shore of Lake Michigan, but still underestimating the PM 2.5 concentrations. And we're not capturing these enhancements over Wisconsin proper. You can, toggling back and forth, you can see that ozone enhancements associated with this wildfires show some enhancements, some improved agreement with the measurements over south central Wisconsin. I'm sorry, central Wisconsin, but we're still underestimating. So we're overall still underestimating PM 2.5 and underestimating ozone. So this looks at uncertainties in the lateral bound conditions, and in particular uncertainties in the wildfire emissions that are used in these global models. So WACM uses Q-fed wildfire emissions, and they underestimate both aerosol and ozone precursors emissions. The model itself is relatively coarse, which means that the ozone production processes within this smoke plume, even though it's a large scale plume, are probably underestimated or not characterized as well. So this is where we turn to data assimilation. These are results from the NOAA Unified Forecasting System, where we've added the RACM's Unified Stratosphere Troposphere Chemistry into that, and are doing 3D VAR data assimilation of Beer's aerosol optical depth. So this is again on the 22nd. That's when the smoke plume was just starting to enter the continental US. In the control experiment, you can see that the plume is still north of the Canadian border, whereas the VEERS shows that it's impacted the upper Midwest. With data assimilation, we show a significant improvement in that transport. This is now just looking at those 4 days, zooming in over Wisconsin. On the top panel is the VEERS data, aerosol optical depth, and the bottom panel is the control experiment. And this is what we get with the simulation. I'll toggle back and forth on those. And you can see that, for example, on the 22nd, we do improve agreement with the observations with the encroachment in the northern tier states. Really don't get that much improvement on the 23rd, significant improvements on the 24th, and again, kind of neutral results on the day where we had the largest exceedances. So there's still some work to be done there. So key takeaways from this: long range transport of the Canadian wildfire smoke on this July 25th had significant, greater than 20 micrograms per meter cubed, and 20 parts per billion for both PM 2.5 and ozone. The ozone exceedance along the western shore of Lake Michigan was less impacted by the smoke than the regional ozone enhancements. But there still are very large uncertainties in wildfire emissions, and these lead to errors in the long range transport. Aerosol data assimilation can certainly help improve that. Trace gas assimilation doesn't necessarily do as good a job. We can improve CO plumes with it by assimilating tropomi, carbon monoxide, but we can improve the trace gas emissions, and that's the direction that we need to go. We have a HAQAST Tiger team that's working on lateral boundary conditions, partnership with a number of the global modelers in the audience today, and the state and local agencies, and I'll stop there. Thank you.
Okay, next up is Monica Soucier. Is she here? Here she comes. Okay. She is from the Imperial County Air Pollution Control District.
Well, good morning, everybody, and thank you to HAQAST for inviting me to talk about this. This is going to be a little bit different than what you've been listening to, but I do want to express the major difference that we have and perhaps the influence that we've had on some of the documents that US EPA has approved and has actually issued as guidance documents. As you can see there, that little circle there, that's the county that I help oversee. We are one of the border states that is part of the US-Mexico border region. Both San Diego County and Imperial County have issues with international transport. Now, why is that important? It's because we have absolutely no regulatory enforcement capabilities across the border. It is their choice whether or not they want to enact something or not. So under the border program, which is now the Border 2024 program, we have been initiating different projects. We started back in 2010 with education. Education to a country that has different cultural habits, different views of life, and different customs. It is not easy to change or to convince. But we targeted the younger generation, and we believe that we've made some successes. So just for a view, we use a lot of satellite imagery. Currently, we use a lot of Google-based imagery, Google-based maps. As you can see, Mexicali, Mexico, which is the capital of city of Baja California, which is considered the northern portion of Mexico, is about 1 million plus population with unregulated industry. There's a lot of US companies, there's a lot of different companies from different countries that manufacture there without any or very little regulatory control. We have just across the border within less than 20 miles, the dirtiest, most polluted geothermal facility. It is so toxic that people that go there have to use hazmat suits. Okay, so we do have some differences. We have transport from smoke. As you can see the image on your left, that is just a Google picture of smoke being that occurs in Mexico. Our annual PM 2.5 2012 SIP we developed, and our 24-hour PM 2.5 SIP we developed a few years back, we did a lot of speciation sampling. And what we discovered in those smoke plumes is that it was trash. So we're talking about chemicals that come from plastics, rubber, wire, just like a house was burning. So if you can imagine a dump, a landfill over 20, 30 acres burning, and that transporting slowly into the United States without us being able to send fire crews or specialized fire equipment out there to take care of the situation, it becomes very hazardous for the city that's right there, the Calexico, California. To your far right is an image of what a Christmas day looked like in Mexicali. That is just ozone layer, haze, whatever you want to call it. It's a mixture of dust, haze, ozone. So needless to say, we have some challenges in Imperial County. This is a picture in 2006. We installed cameras in all our monitoring sites. We have 2 cameras in each site. We have 5 different sites. We're not a big urban area, so we're very, very small. We're under 100,000 or just about 100,000 population total. And so you can see here, this is a dust event. This is coming in. Most of our work for our PM10 SIP was exceptional events for dust, for wind mitigation, not necessarily for fire, but for wind. Here's another image, a satellite image of how the dust looks like. That's the Salton Sea, by the way, if any of you are familiar with issues with the Salton Sea. That is I believe the only landlocked sea in the United States. I'm not quite sure. It has been receding over years quite a bit, but that's just kind of the images we use for our exceptional events. We use Terra and Aqua Modus, the deep blue deep blue, I'm sorry, I just lost track of what I was saying. Anyways, and the angstrom products. So here's a picture of what it looks like for the GOES. And you can kind of see it's going right through and right over our valley. I don't know how good those images were, but you can just see it going through the mountains there. It's picking up the dust. We've tracked dust through satellite coming all the way from San Diego County. So the next one. We had our first habu, daytime habu, October 6, 2022. That is actual a rooftop picture of the habu coming in. Those are our monitors. So needless to say, we exceeded that day, but we also met the the high energy exception under the exceptional event. So we didn't need to do an exceptional event for that one. Here's what it looked like on satellite. If you look to your far left, there it goes. And there it is. It went all the way into Los Angeles County. It traveled, it affected about 6 different counties. There it is. Pictures are great, aren't they? The other thing we've been starting to do with the new standard for the PM 2.5 and all the work that we've been doing with the border, we are looking at the NOx, not necessarily for PM 2.5, but there are some precursors that we need to look at. Direct PM 2.5, we don't have an issue. We've been able to prove through EPA that our direct PM 2.5 is negligible. However, we do need to look at the precursors. So we're talking about VOCs and NOx or anything else that may be contributing to those emissions. And so we do use, and we haven't really gotten the handle of these type of NASA using these NASA interfaces. The last one we used was on the Aurora satellite, which we were able to demonstrate the changes from 2020 on, which was really nice. But I'll be honest, we're a small district. We are going to need to contract out to get expert advice. But it's really exciting, the work that HAQAST is doing and all the collaborators that are doing to help verify some of the information that we will be getting on the ground. Work that we've done through the border region. Oh, I want to quickly mention, one of the USGS has been using one of the satellites from, or several satellites from NASA to detect algae blooms. So algae blooms can be very dangerous if some of you are familiar with it or not. We were not really sure where this was coming from. We were very excited that the University of California in Riverside finally did a public health study, and they were able to preliminarily detect high levels of incidents in the emergency rooms with algae blooms and high wind speeds. So if you'll, let me see. So that's an algae bloom, what it looks like from the satellite. Or it's green, and when there is no wind, it's not an issue. However, when the wind comes rolling down from the west, then you have a problem. And people that live around the area end up getting sick. So to kind of sum up, we've been working closely with our border region folks. We've been we're now concentrating on the public health issues and the alerts. We've had a team go down there to do asthma visits. And hopefully in the near future, we'll at least get some advisory out to the public to understand what's going on with their children. And then with that, I'd like to thank you.
Okay, so up next is Daniel Tong. He's a HAQAST member and from George Mason University.
Hi, good morning. So thank you, Monica, for this wonderful introduction. That is my favorite topic, but today I'm going to switch gear and talk about something else, which is wildfire air quality. Let's continue the work that's presented by Brad. This is really contributed by a lot of people, especially focused from NASA, NOAA, and Naval Research Laboratory. And most of the work is done by Yun Yao Li, is a research scientist in my group, and then also Hawara Macron, she is a graduate student. So basically, we have seen this beautiful story that with increase in GDP, we have emission control, and we have nice reduction of emissions and improving of air quality. So this story continues until recently. That's, we can see this air quality improvement stopped in recent years. Part of it is because it's driven by climate change and related to natural source emissions, such as wildfire and dust storms. So a couple of years ago, we started, this is part of my core project with HAQAST. We started to work with NOAA, NASA, and Naval Research Lab, trying to build a system that could provide a better service, because air quality forecasting is a very important tool for air quality managers, also health experts, to work on that, to mitigate their impact of hazardous air quality. So here we go back to track. You heard many people talking about the forecasting, wildfire forecasting. For example, I give you a few forecasts here. This is the NOAA global model called GEFS also. And they also have national air quality forecast capability. That's the operational model, air quality forecast model. And many people have been using HER smoke. That's a research product coming from NOAA lab. But HER really, police are using HER, you should know that HER is not predicting PM2.5, it's predicting smoke tracer. So they are using that as a tracer. It does not include anthropogenic emissions. So if you blame them for too low, that's because they only account for the increment counted by wildfires. The NRL labs model and also NASA have geosphere model that Emma is here. But if you look at the results on the same day, right, this is the average for the entire wildfire season. They have huge difference. For a user like me, I'm always confused, like which product should I be using, right? So that's the question that we try to answer, motivating our work. To demonstrate that how hard wildfire forecast is, but you should not blame any of them, because they have been working very hard. Just the problem itself is very hard. Right, so we have done experiments with high-speed model, which is a very simple dispersion model. We change the emission, we change the plume rise, because most of fires, especially like fires, injected at a higher level, change meteorology, and then also the transport options. Only 4 variables. Remember, we are not doing any fire chemistry here yet. So if you put all this, you change, put a base each of the inputs to the model, and you come out with this 112 simulations. On any given day, easily you can see the prediction from one model to another model. It's the same model from one case to another case, can vary by a factor of 1,000, right? So that's how wide this difference can be. But that's a large spread in the forecast, even with the same model. What lies in about this is, if you look at the ensemble, which here is the simple multimodal mean. Okay, so there's a dash, the solid dash line here in black. It's actually getting very close to the red line, red solid line. That's the observation. So that gives us some hope that we might be able to get some reliable wildfire air quality forecast. So our HAQAST core projects is trying to bring all the federal agencies together, because each forecasting system has its own value and consume a huge amount of public resources to make it work. And we have the regional models, CMAC, high split from NOAA. I have 3 global models, that's geosphere, GFAS, and NAMS. We also consider in the early stage the ICAP. So and later there are more models join us. So we come up with this North America regional ensemble. We call it hazardous air quality ensemble system, or HAQAST. So we study the 2020 peak fire as a case study to demonstrate how useful the system can be for the matter of time. I'm going to skip that because many of you are very familiar with the 2020 peak fire. This is the AOD, also optical depths. It's the total column we look from the sky. They're simulated by each models. Remember here, we only using model 1 to 7 because on any given days, one model can be producing very ugly results. So just to avoid public embarrassment and generate a more inclusive, collaborative environment. So we only give a number, a numerical number for each model. But all the modelers know which model the number is. And you can see that most of the model under predict the AOD in the source region, California here, except model 5. But the ensemble, if you compare that to RIOS AOD, RIOS is a sensor that produce AOD, and then also MAYAC AOD, that's from Moody's. Those ensemble forecasts actually match those sensor evolution best. And same thing for surface PM 2.5. Most of the models overestimate. So now for column, for total column, most of the model underpredicted. But surface concentration is totally different story. They overestimate the PM 2.5. Some models do not have plume rise. So they emit everything as a surface. Some just like have a prefixed height. And then the emission and transport and then also fire weather interaction of this are the concern here. So most of individual models overestimate PM 2.5 in the source region and also partially downwind. But the ensemble also match the surface concentration from the EPL now that was in the past. So I'm just talking, you may not believe me. Let me show you some data. So this is the statistics we have here. We use different metrics, the MSE, correlation, mean bias, frictional bias, heat ratio, force alarm rate. And the last one is ranking. Ranking is a composite matrix with 4 of them. So ranking is the most important. You can see that ensemble mean excellent in 3 of the individual metrics, and also it's the best in terms of the ranking. Some models like model 2 actually is pretty impressive, can score the highest score in 2 of the metrics. But overall, this ensemble model performed best. Yeah, another interesting thing is ensemble forecasting can give you exceedance probability. So our first speaker today mentioned about the new standard now. We are the daily one here. We're still using 35. It's retained. So this is any day when the 24-hour average above 35 microgram per cubic meter. We only use 6 numbers here because one model does not provide surface concentration. So if you have 100%, all models predict exceedances, that's 100%. If only one model, that's 17%. So on this gigafire cases, you can find that whenever the model predicts 50% or higher, it's actually as a real case. You can see the circles, the real circle, that's the observation of observed exceedance. They actually match the prediction. However, in the southeastern US, if there's only one model predict that, most of the time it's a false alarm. So if you want to use our products, you have to build your own experience, like how reliable this prediction are, and how can you use that for your application. All of I was talking about that for this first stage, using unweighted ensemble mean. Right now we are testing different methods to assign a weighting factor because some models actually are doing better than others. So we test the 4 methods. This multilinear regression, rigid regression, quantile regression, and weighted regression for high values. And this is the bottom. You are showing. We are seeing this bias. You can see that all this weighted average ensemble actually is better in terms of bias. It's lower bias than the unweighted one, which is MMA, multimodal average. And the hit ratio is higher. False alarm rate is lower, except for QR and the quantile regression. So it tells us that even better, like if you use a weighted ensemble, you can probably give you an even better results. The last one is the data access. All the data are publicly available. You can download it from NASA Goddard Science Disk and Information Service Center. You can see the poster. Xiaohua Pan has one downstairs. This work been integrated into NASA data center thanks to the Tiger team led by Kevin and Bryan. And the data is not only give you the grade, but also we have county and census tract so that any people who use it in ArcGIS file or GIS can easily adapt it. I will stop here. Thank you.
Speakers, please come back up.
Okay, we only have about 15 minutes. Okay,
Are there any questions for our speakers? Okay. Yes.
Do I need a microphone?
No.
Okay. This was for Brad Paul Miller, NESCOM. The modeling with and without wood smoke emissions for ozone and seeing not so great an impact along the western shore of Lake Michigan. You know, I work with the Northeast states. We have sort of similar dynamics along the Long Island Sound. I'm curious, have you done or thought of doing the flip side, keeping the wildfire smoke in the model and taking out the urban emissions? And I ask because the shoreline monitors are one from a policy perspective that drive the non-attainment, not the more inland ones. And I'm wondering what the impact looks like if you took out the urban emissions but left the wildfire smoke in that area.
We haven't done that experiment, but I can speculate. So I agree that the Long Island Sound, you know, coastal dynamics are very similar. At this, we do have a run with our optimized Canadian wildfire emissions for the New York City domain. We haven't done a control experiment without emissions. We can probably do that if that's something the NESCOM would be interested in looking at. But again, what we saw was kind of this regional enhancement on the order of 20 or so parts per billion. If we didn't have Chicago emissions, we wouldn't have seen, you know, the 100 parts per billion that we got along the lakeshore. I'm pretty confident in that. So maybe those are experiments we could consider.
Okay, yes.
Thank you for the presentation. Bryan, I have a question about how you verify there's any prediction for the QFED, that fire emission data, and is there any other source to contribute to the under prediction your model performance in that region? That's some basic question.
So the way that we were looking at how we evaluated the under prediction in QFED was by comparing the WACM forecast for Canadian monitors that were in the path of the wildfire plume. And as I said, we didn't do a formal optimization of those emissions. What we did is a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5x scaling, and then found out where we should apply that scaling depending on which sort of biome we're in. And so basically the under prediction is just looking at those Canadian monitors and the PM 2.5 surface concentrations that were observed versus what we predicted. And we definitely didn't capture the significant enhancements that were observed prior to coming into the US.
I have another question for Daniel too. How you choose which model to enable in your study?
Yeah, our first criterion for the continuous operation. So we work with the federal agencies together first. But yeah, we're open. So if there's other models that can have ensure long-term operation, we'll be happy to integrate into our system.
Hey, Doug Boyer from Texas Commission on Environmental Quality. My question's for Monica, and appreciate the hearing about Imperial County and border issues there. I'm interested in about your cameras that you said you placed at your monitoring locations. Have you used any of that imagery in exceptional event demonstrations? Or what was its purpose, I guess?
So EPA was hesitant. They never said yes or no. But, so they still wanted all the weight of evidence. If we wanted to add the video, the links, we did, by the way. That was fine, but they didn't hang their decision on that at all. They still wanted to see all the analysis. They still wanted to see all the weight of evidence before. Pictures, pictures do say a lot, but they do have a point. It does not, because of the range, it does not give you the source or non-source. And so the satellite imagery does, it assists. So it was part of the package, but it wasn't what convinced them one way or the other. I hope that answered your question.
Yeah, thank you. It's something that we've considered as more imagery, but what gets included in an exceptional event demonstration for EPA's ultimate approval is a question mark, I guess.
If I might add, one of the things that we did find when we first installed the cameras was not every camera is up to the task. In our search for the type of camera to use was a little more challenging than we thought, because you need the range and you need the clarity. Whereas a lot of these cameras are meant for smaller spaces, less than 100 feet or whatever, and you need that range that goes several miles. So all our cameras were Starlight, and not promoting, but just saying that over time. Also, Great Basin Unified Air Pollution Control District is it's great at giving you they do a lot of camera work because of the metropolitan water issue that they had with damming up the lake many years ago and then getting sued for all the dust emissions that are coming off of that dried lake bed. And they have for years now, we're talking longer than we have. So they were a great source for how to get that data without it cluttering your network, and being able to download it from remote sites. We've got 2 long remote sites that we get the images pretty clear.
Make an additional, I know CAL FIRE uses cameras
Yes.
extensively too.
Yeah. And they
so-
went through the same process we did.
Okay.
They actually called us,
Okay,
and they also talked to Great Basin. So, yeah.
I'm gonna ask another question. Is the camera available online? Other researchers can access the data, or we have archive?
So we got hit with ransomware,
Wow.
and our IT has been reluctant to allow you can see it online, but they're 30-second images. So, as far as the archiving, our IT right now, we're still in the process of working out, I don't know, whatever makes them feel great or protected. But so right now we have limited archiving.
Okay, so we have a question from Luke in the back.
Yeah, this is for Monica, Luke Boleyn, EPA. Thanks for coming. I was wondering, one real gap in our surface air monitoring network is continuous ammonia, especially in California's agriculture.
It's continuous what? I'm sorry.
Ammonia.
Oh, ammonia.
And so I'm wondering if you've been approached or considered monitoring for ammonia in agricultural regions. And then also, if you're able to provide reference information for that harmful algal bloom health connection work, I'd be very appreciative.
Sure. On the connection, I guess we can meet afterwards, right? And as far as ammonia, not formally, it's been a side conversation, but we have not formally been approached. I hope that answered the question.
I think you had a question.
Yes, so I have an online question for Dr. Pierce. They ask, I'm wondering which wildfire file you use, QFED or FIN, and how do you combine the wildfire with the global model of WACM to create a global map for wildfire and merge it with WACM files? Thanks.
we are using QFED, and we were running, so Gerald Octon worked with Gabby Pfister and other groups at the ACOM laboratory at NCAR, and it was their configuration of WACM. that we're using. So there are, from QFed, I had on there, it's QFed, but the actual emission factors are from something else. I don't remember right now, but that was configured by the ACOM group at NCAR.
Thank you.
I have a question for Brad that often when we run model, often we're talking about numerical diffusion. That often for wildfire plume, I would think this could be a problem. I don't know if you have any concern in simulating wildfire plume considering numerical diffusion and how bad can it be?
So very good point. And I think that's one of the real shortfalls of the global scale models that we're trying to use to connect the source regions with the receptor regions. That diffusion, which is a problem we're going to have even if we go to some of these new adaptive grid kind of like Musica model where you have a 1 degree model, but it nests down to high resolution. You're still going to have that diffusive property of that coarse scales. So that's a long-standing problem. You can solve it if you run globally at 4 kilometers, but I don't think that's feasible. So diffusion is a big issue. And I think that's why we're finding that we don't see, if we look at aircraft data, we don't see sort of the standard ozone versus CO, where we see enhancements in ozone associated with enhancements of CO. That's because of the dispersive properties of the large scale transport.
Okay, Michael. Yeah, Michael Geiger from Connecticut. Brad, maybe you said this, but what was the boundary condition latitude for your model? How far out were you? Because you obviously had to have a boundary, right?
Yeah, the domain, it's a 4 kilometer grid and it covers the upper Midwest. So the northern boundary condition was about 50 degrees north.
Okay, so yeah, Western Canadian fires would have been outside that domain. So anything, any
Which
emissions?
fires?
What?
Which fires?
The Western Canadian fires that.
Oh yeah, they were from, again, we're using WACM
Whack.
to provide boundary conditions, and it was within WACM that we did the Western wildfire sensitivity experiment.
I guess how trustworthy are they? I guess, I mean, they have to be pretty accurate.
And the largest uncertainty is definitely in those wildfire emissions.
Okay. Did I hear you say that you would, the NOAA UFS model is part of WACM at one point, or?
No, that's an independent part. So
Yeah.
we're developing that so that we can use satellite data to constrain some of those emissions.
Because the NOAA model they still refuse to turn on the VOCs from wildfires. So you use your own configuration, I assume?
We're putting in our own chemistry
Good.
into UFS. And another student of mine, Maggie Bruckner, is actually looking at adding additional VOCs to those wildfire emissions, following up from the FireX-AQ field campaign.
Great. I look forward to seeing those results.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay, Doug. Yeah, Doug Boyer from Texas. This is, I guess, for both Brad and Daniel. Seeing Daniel's ensemble modeling, I'm thinking about the meteorological performance from Brad's runs and how do those mix together? Did you do any meteorological performance evaluation? And what about an ensemble of MET models?
So the GIFS aerosol, one of his ensemble members is actually, so UFS RACMS is adding RACMS chemistry to GIFS aerosols. And GIFS is part of, it is the seasonal to sub-seasonal forecasting system for NOAA. And it's part of a 60-member ensemble that does have meteorological perturbations. What it doesn't have until very recently is any aerosol feedback. If there's only one GIFS ensemble member that has aerosols, the plan is to have all the ensemble members have.
It's already been implemented.
It's been implemented. So now all ensemble members are predicting aerosols. In the future, in addition to the standard MET perturbations that are part of that ensemble forecast, there could be emission perturbations
and have feedbacks on the wildfire smoke so that you get net impacts. And I'd like to see that go in that direction.
Brad covered well, so I just want to add that we, for this ensemble air quality forecasting, we are mostly relied on individual agencies to do their work for evaluation. And we just take the output from them, come up with something value added.
We only have a few more minutes. I have a question for you, Young. So it wasn't clear to me if the fires that you were talking about, if one of the fires, it turned out it was Tennessee's fire that was impacting the station, does that trigger something different for you as a Georgia EPD person than if the fire that actually affected the station was within Georgia? It wasn't clear to me how that would play a difference in how you went about your exceptional event declaration.
Right. A great question. It's my understanding if you want to go route with the prescribed burn exceptional event caused by the prescribed burn in the wildland fire, then you got to have the management plan that establish the foundation of that route by saying that you have a plan to manage your the fire, I guess, the forestry to do the kind of the regular fires to protect your ecosystem. So that's a management plan. That's per state. So if the fire turned out to be the Tennessee one, we don't have that plan approved or concurred by EPA. And I believe we may end up going route of the wildfire exceptional event because EPA have a 4 or 5 different guidelines or guideline documents that we have to follow. And each of them have a kind of overlapping, but some of them are very different in the sense of the level of the information that we have to provide as part of the weight of evidence, I guess, demonstration. So it'll actually change the kind of path at the beginning, depending on which one should be the one that we have to claim as type of the, depending on the type of the fire. So that being said, if it ends up being sort of equally contributing, then I don't know. It may end up being a kind of blended documents that claiming that is part of it is this and part of that is because of the wildfire. One more thing is, it's my understanding also that for exceptional events, you have to specify which fire actually caused the exceptional events. So that's something that we are working with the EPA also, that what kind of specificity they are really requiring, because sometimes like wildfire, you don't even know which fire that even labeling it causing so specific accidents. And that's also true for our prescribed burn too. Sometimes we have a lot of fires nearby the monitor, and sometimes it's very hard to specify which fire actually causing the daily accidents.
Okay, with that, I would like to thank our speakers.